thing I said was basically our mind can be sometimes too rigid. Now, transforming the mind can mean so many different things, but one thing that I think is very important is to make it less rigid, more flexible, more open, less rigid. Right? Like certain views we hold and we believe those to be true. Yeah. And it's very interesting. People who travel, when you talk to them, when they've left their home, it's different to talking to people who never even left their village. There's a real difference, isn't there? So it just shows that the mind just expands more. But even if you don't physically travel, if you just open your mind to other cultures, to other ways of doing, you don't have to actually go there, but it's usually people only start opening their mind when they do that. And sometimes you don't have to travel far. I mean, especially in India, different language, or in Tibet, even more so. I had some classmates who came from exactly the same area. They were only separated by a few valleys, but there was one classmate, their language, none of the others understood. Like the language this particular classmate spoke, none of the other classmates could speak it, although they only flew a few kilometers away. So because of the geographic kind of separation due to the high mountains and everything and people not traveling as much, totally different languages developed. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, talking about our mind being less rigid, being more open towards others, the next technique, as I said earlier, is about equalizing and exchanging self with others, for others. Okay. Now, first of all, the technique here is, first you identify the self-centered attitude, because that, and we've already done that to some degree, we've talked about it more from the point of view of how it gives rise to the other afflictions, but we might as well mention it again, remind ourselves again how it acts, how it functions, but more importantly, how we are controlled by that. Our own mind. When I say we have so many different types of minds. There are the sense consciousnesses, of course, but they're all neutral. They just provide us with the sense objects, with the information when it comes to visual objects, sounds, and so forth. And then there's the mental consciousness. That's the one to look out for. The mental consciousness is the one thing we can change. The mental consciousness is the most important. So it's not the sense consciousness. As many of you probably know, usually we talk of 6 types of consciousness. 5 of them are sense, but then there's the mental one that is always present. It's always present. So when we say, I fall unconscious, what that literally means is not that there is no consciousness, but that there is no coarse consciousness active at the time when we are unconscious. Unconscious whether because we fainted, or because we're in the process of death, we're dying, or because we've fallen asleep. These are all states of mind where the mind is there, but it's subtler. It's a subtler type of mind. Mind is there. We don't remember later on. We may remember, but we may not. Especially when we have dreams, we are more likely to remember, but oftentimes we don't. Or I've had situations when I dreamt something, then I woke up, and if I thought about the dream, now with a coarser mind, the awakened mind, but it could still access through memory what I had just dreamt. So if I went through it in my mind again, I created a memory with my coarser mind, and I could remember the next day. I can also tell when the dream it seems more vivid, so I can easily remember the next day. And then those that, if I don't reflect on it right away, it's gone. Those minds are subtler. And again, if I bring it onto a coarser level, but just once run it past, kind of like remember it once, like what was it, this, then I can remember the next day. If I don't do that, even a few seconds after waking, it's gone. It's almost like it slips away. That's so interesting how the very subtle mind, therefore, or the subtler types of mind, it's just hard to access them without coarser mind. And only briefly after waking up, sometimes we remember. But the subtlest type of mind, I don't think we have any memory of them. And the very subtle is what's called the clear light mind. There's a mind called the clear light, the subtle clear light mind. And that mind manifests at the time of death and is described to have the appearance of clarity, which is very interesting. And it is preceded by a mind of total darkness and then that whiteness. So when people talk about the dark tunnel and the white light, well, that's it. That's the one. The white light, the tunnel. First is black, a mind of total blackness, if you want. It's called something different, but never mind. It's really like just this lightness, blackness. And then the subtlest mind manifests, and that is that clear. It has that, it's not a light as such, but it appears to the person in whose continuum the mind is active, there's this total clarity. And they describe it as total peace, wisdom and love all in one mind, basically. I mean, in the sense like those people who have near-death experiences. I remember on the BBC there was once like a five-part kind of documentary called The Human Being. And the very last of these 5 episodes was death. And they interviewed people who had near-death experiences. And one guy, he talked about exactly that. He said, like, when that clear mind was active, it was so vivid. And there was wisdom and love. Love and wisdom, those two. Very interesting. That's how we finish off with that kind of mind. It's nice ending of an often difficult life. Yeah. But that's very important. That's a very important mind from a Buddhist point of view. You can actually learn to utilize this and meditate with it. But those are very advanced meditations, not for us right now. They're of a tantric nature. So tantra in Buddhism doesn't mean what it sometimes means in other traditions. It's not scary. It's not about sorcery. It can be used that way. It can be used that way. Yeah, it can be used to, it's not almost like a kind of voodoo, if you want. It can be used, but it's not recommended because you harm yourself so much more than anyone else. So it's not. You don't even hear about it. But of course, if you know the story of Milarepa, he basically first did this kind of voodoo, if you like, based on, I guess, tantra. But that's the darker side to it. It's like anything. If it's anything that is really, really powerful, can be used in a positive way, very powerfully, and in a negative way. Think of nuclear energy, right? You can use it in a very positive way, benefit a lot of people, but you can also use it in a very, so similar, certain practices are like that. But the point is with this very subtle mind, that's what I'm trying to get at. So it's like there's always a mind, even if it's the subtlest type. And that's the mental consciousness. That is the only thing we can truly change. I mean, we can change our sense consciousnesses, but the process is much slower. You can't immediately change your eye consciousness and see more or see clearer without glasses, for instance. That's difficult. But the mental consciousness can be relatively quickly changed, even within this life. Of course, not from one moment to the next, but it can still be relatively easily be transformed. That which transforms it is the mental consciousness, and is also the one thing we can really change. And the one thing we really need to change, right? I mean, we can try to change others, the people around us. Of course we can try, especially like our own children, we have an influence over them. But there it's doubtful, there's no certainty, in other words, that we can be successful. They may listen to us and may change, but they may not. With the mental consciousness, this you can change 100%. You can 100% change. And that which changes it is the mental consciousness itself, right? What else is going to do it? So our own thoughts, our own wisdom, our own understanding is applied to change our habits. So sometimes people ask, how is it possible a contaminated mind can transform? Well, take this body. How can a stiff body become the body of a yogi, right? Like yogi in the sense of here, like a physical yogi. Yeah, it's the super stiff body you have here right now. And if I do the right kind of exercises, the right kind of movements, then this very body is utilized to transform itself into a very flexible body. Same idea. Likewise, with the mental consciousness, we use that same mind, and that transforms itself, and that's the only thing we can truly transform. That is our most important aggregate, our most important component as a person, our mental consciousness. It also determines who we are, right? It basically determines who we are. Of course, there are also some physical aspects, where we're born, in what family we're born. That also determines what we look like. But really, when it comes down to getting to know someone, their personality, what really counts, that is determined by the mental consciousness. Are we loving, or are we, I don't know, aggressive, for instance? That's our mental consciousness. The sense consciousnesses don't become aggressive. They're not loving. They're neutral. They provide us with information, yes. They perceive things, they know things around us, yes. However, they don't think. They don't analyze. They don't get angry. It's all the mental consciousness. And in Buddhist practice, the main focus is on that. It's that which meditates. It's that which studies, reflects, and then, meditates. Everything revolves around that. But that's not the I. Just in case you wondered. That's not the I. Why not? Because it's my mental consciousness. My mental consciousness. So, obviously, that which owns the mental consciousness and the owner are not the same. Otherwise, we wouldn't say my mental consciousness. Okay? All right. And the mental consciousness keeps changing all the time. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two. What? You end up with multiple personalities if you have two mental consciousnesses running at the same time. Right? Yeah, we can have more than one, two, three. We can have several at the same time. It is possible. Maybe rare, but still possible. And the mental consciousness, sometimes it's very coarse. So a coarser level is present, but a subtler isn't. But the self, coarse self, subtle self, we don't distinguish. Self is self. Therefore, the mental consciousness cannot be the person. Just in case you wondered. All right. Okay, having said all this, so right now we have this mental consciousness, this precious, precious mental consciousness with all its potentials, with all its abilities that unfortunately we're not fully using right now. But we're still using it in an amazing way. I mean, the stuff we can do, especially as humans, is pretty amazing. No stone, no leaf can do that because they don't have a mind. And even animals can't do what we can do. Therefore, it's said to be really good to be born human because of the abilities we have and because of a healthy amount of suffering. As long as we haven't overcome suffering, suffering can be very useful. The goal, the long-term goal, is of course to overcome it and help others to achieve the same. But while we still have it, it can be very helpful. Suffering can be useful. But what is it that causes us to suffer? Of course, it's the self-centered mind. Again, we've already gone through it. I don't think it's difficult to recognize it in ourselves, is it? Like whenever you have a problem, whenever you feel, I'm miserable, look for it and you'll find it. It's somewhere involved. Somehow involved. What would the problem be? For instance, someone doesn't treat me nicely. Okay? Someone insults me. It's the self-centered mind that's going, they insulted me. Right? It gives rise to the anger, the resentment, and so forth. When we're in pain, right? The pain. Like, oftentimes when we're in pain, it goes along with worry. There's frustration, doesn't it? It's not like, oh, there's some pain. Never mind, just pain, right? Just a sensation. Actually, pain really just becomes pain when it becomes painful, in that it really bothers us, when the self-centered mind is involved. Imagine you had the ability to know another person's pain, like the real pain. But thinking it's their pain, I don't think we'd worry about it, right? If you just suddenly could have the same sensation they have, right? But you knew it's theirs, I just know theirs. You don't connect this one with your own self and your own body. Okay, there's no worry. There's no sense, oh, this sucks, this is terrible. And the fact that once you realize emptiness directly, you don't experience pain in such a way. In fact, in the texts, for instance, there's a text by Chandrakirti. I haven't really started using text to refer to these things because I think it may feel a little abstract. But anyway, I'm going to say this. So in Chandrakirti's Entering into the Middle Way, it says, if you want to give away your body to benefit others, even sacrifice your body, I mean, the love and compassion that is emphasized in texts such as this is so strong that it emphasizes, well, you can give away your body if you want, you know, like you get another one anyway, so, right? With rebirth, it's not such a big deal. But don't do it until you realize emptiness directly. Because the pain and everything is unbearable. So on that level, you can do it. On that level, you can start basically giving away your body if you like. You can, even, I mean, it's not like something you should really be doing. I mean, better to stay around and benefit others. But there may be situations that arise. And so if you choose to do so, I remember once there was a monk. I heard about this monk. And he met a Tibetan girl. This was many years ago when I was just early into my studies. And I seem to remember he met a girl who was blind and he gave one of his eyes to her. I mean, this was a matter of just there was damage to both eyes. So it could be corrected through getting a new eye. And he actually gave her one of her eyes. Oh, who does that? Incredible. I was so deeply impressed. And I don't even think they were closely related or anything. I think he just met her and felt terrible what she was going through, and he gave her his eye. Incredible. And so do people with kidneys. They just give their kidney. If a relative, there was one High Lama once here. He passed away some years ago. What was his name again? I'm trying to think now. No, I don't remember. He passed away some years ago. No, forget now. Anyway, his sons, he has a few sons. He had a son who was a monk, but he also passed away. And one of his sons owns Coffee Talk in Baklaganj. And either it was him or another son, when their father needed a kidney, they gave one of their kidneys. I don't know whether it's the owner of Coffee Talk or his other son. I mean, of course, it has to also fit. So this is incredible, right? I mean, kidney, it's not as bad, I think, as eye. Ooh, yeah. But the point is, what the texts are telling us, that once you reach that level, when you realize emptiness, the ultimate nature directly, you don't experience pain in the same way. So I don't think it's disappearing. It's still there. The sensation is still there, but it's not interpreted as pain. It can't be anything other than that, because if you still feel it, but it doesn't bother you any longer, it must have to do with our self-centered mind. That seems very difficult. I mean, it's easy with slight pain. It's easier with slight pain. Easier. Like, you know, I pinch myself. Okay, I can bear it. It's not like I'm going to fall into a depression on that. Or like, you know, slight things. But the stronger it gets, the stronger it gets. What's the worst pain? If someone pokes a needle into your spine or something, right? I don't know. I don't know what's the worst kind of pain. But that's probably pretty, or something into your tooth, like hitting the nerves. I don't know. But the point is, it has to do with our self-centered mind on a really subtle level. Because for a bodhisattva, on the level of having realized emptiness, it doesn't bother them. Right? I mean, there's still a sensation. That's very interesting, isn't it? So the whole thing about pain seems to be objectively there. It's got nothing to do with my mental consciousness, like physical pain, but there's more to it. There's more to it. And when you're unconscious, you don't feel it. Right? When you're unconscious, you don't feel it. So, okay, so the sense consciousnesses are not present. The body consciousness is not present when you're unconscious. The sense consciousnesses can only operate on a coarser level. All right, so the physical, so there's no sensation at all. I guess that would explain it. Yeah, otherwise, when you're unconscious. So, but still, I very much, yeah, the mental consciousness must be involved. But we can't really test it because there's no situation when you have only the sense consciousnesses and no mental consciousness. Maybe if you're in a stupor, like totally like, I don't know, when you're like you're still there, but it would also be the sense consciousnesses would also be affected. Yeah, I can give you a reason. I want to understand it better. Like there must be a scientific explanation for that. I believe there's a scientific explanation for everything. But we don't have the explanation yet. I think this reincarnation is very scientific. It can be scientifically proven, but not right now. Yeah? Science is just in the beginning, basically. I mean, it's not that advanced yet. There's still room for improvement. So I want to find out why that is the case, but never mind. So for now, I think it makes very much sense that the self-centered mind is involved in that. The self-centered mind is involved in everything. It always meddles. Even when we practice the Dharma, right? Even then, oh yeah, it's there, trust me. Becoming a nun, it never went away. Yeah. So, and that mind is the troublemaker. It creates all our problems. That's just that. It's exaggerated. It's not in accordance with reality. It exaggerates the importance of I and mine. But that doesn't make us bad people. So it's not like we need to feel ashamed about it or anything. Like, usually when you say to someone, you're self-centered, that's like, whoa. No, but we have that mind because we have that misperception. And once you have the misconception, then it automatically arises. There's not much you can do unless you overcome that root misconception. That's the only solution. You can merely reduce it. A lot of what we do is about reducing these afflictions, but those are just short-term solutions, very limited solutions. The goal is always to remove that root ignorance, and we'll discuss this, of course, more. Understanding emptiness, basically, because emptiness is the opposite of the object that the root misconception perceives. Emptiness means absence of inherent existence. Absence of existing in a solid, concrete way. Our root misconception perceives everything that exists to exist inherently, concretely, in an independent fashion. So emptiness is really just the opposite of that, being empty of that. So emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. Emptiness, I didn't realize that for a long time. I didn't realize that this is actually, emptiness in everyday English has a very negative connotation, right? My life is so empty. So much emptiness in my life. Oh. Independence is, being dependent is also not a favorite word. Who wants to be dependent? Everyone wants to be independent, right? No one wants to be dependent. I'm dependent on my parents. Oh, shameful, kind of, right? Like if you're, I don't know, 30, 40 years old and you're still dependent on your parents, oh, right? Or whatever. I mean, yeah, but the point here, of course, it means something different, is to understand it means something slightly different. Okay, so, therefore, our self-centered mind is, as the texts say, it's the door to misery. It's the entrance to misery. The self-centered mind. So, it's actually the root misconception, of course, is something else, is another mind altogether. So it's that misconception giving rise to the exaggerating, projecting mind, and only then attachment arises. But once that attachment to I, me, and mine, or I and mine, which is the self-centered mind, once that's there, then it takes over. That's the one that is directly involved in all our actions. It determines everything. It's ever present in that. Even if it's not actively present, it can still influence our other minds. Okay? Very important. And I said in the beginning, do not underestimate that mind. It's not just on a coarser level, even on a subtler level. It's still not on the subtlest level, that's impossible. But on a slightly subtler level, in your dreams, do you still have self-centeredness? Of course. So you see, even then it's active. Even then, and that's already a pretty subtle level. Okay, and that's the door to all misery. And that's what of the equalizing a changing self for others, it's first focusing on what is the self-centered mind. We've already done that. And what are its disadvantages? It's as simple as that. You don't have that mind, you're happy. That's it. You don't suffer. If you didn't have that mind, you wouldn't. So of course we have it because of the root misconception. So we need to remove the misconception. But if, let's say, hypothetically, we could remove it without removing the misconception, we wouldn't have to worry about emptiness. If we could actually get rid of that self-centered mind without having to realize emptiness, emptiness wouldn't have been discussed. Who cares? Right? If everything to become a Buddha and so forth, so get rid of, so become a Buddha, the self-centered mind plays a huge part, actually. The misconception plays a bigger part because it also leaves imprints on our mind, and those need to be removed as well. But in general, at least to be just liberated from samsara, which means remove all the afflictions, all the mental afflictions, including the self-centered mind. So anyway, if it was done, if we could remove all the other afflictions plus the self-centered mind for good without realizing emptiness, we'd be liberated. It'd be okay, we wouldn't need emptiness to be liberated. That is the true troublemaker, really. That's really, yeah. And think, what is the main problem? What's the main problem people have? It's self-centeredness. Right? It's self-centeredness. A person who doesn't have any self-centeredness is happy, is there for others, is easily... And the good thing is you can reduce it. And we know people who are more selfish than others, right? We ourselves have times when we're more selfish than others. Does that make sense? Okay, so therefore the first step is identifying the self-centered attitude and then understanding how much misery it brings. Understanding mainly, of course, from the point of view of ourselves. Okay. And then the qualities of cherishing others. Okay. Now, reversing it in that right now the focus is on I and mine. Through habituation, we can change that. We can actually kind of reduce that a little bit, like focus more on others. Of course, if we're not very disciplined here, we go back to the good old ways. So this is not a long-term solution because we're so familiar with just looking after ourselves. But we can reverse it even without understanding emptiness. And the more you reverse it, the more you reduce it. I shouldn't say reverse, but reduce. The more you reduce it, the easier it gets to understand emptiness. Right? Why? Because our self-centered mind perceives an inherent I, inherent mine, right? It's the I that it perceives is totally unrealistic. But when you don't give it enough attention, it's not ever present, or it's no longer or present only on very few occasions, then there's no reinforcement of inherent existence, right? Because I guess the worst grasping at inherent existence is with regard to the self, right? Because I don't get table-centered instead of, or table-obsessed. I have self-obsession, self-centeredness, but I don't get table-centeredness or you-centeredness or anything. I may obsess over a person, yeah, but in the end, it's because I obsess over them because of my own benefit. Therefore, it's really that grasping onto the inherently existent self, that's the one that needs to be looked out for most. Okay? And thus the focus of, and then the self-cherishing mind, therefore, that needs to be reduced, because when we do, we don't reinforce constantly the sense inherently existent I, and grasping onto it. So focusing on others, then we realize the chair is empty. The chair we usually sit on, right? So it's a bit like you getting up from that chair. Right now we sit with that self-centered mind, grasping at inherent existence. So we get up to benefit others and realize there was never anything in the first place. Does that kind of make sense? It's a weird way of talking. This is actually one of my classmates who's a Rinpoche. We debated once, and I asked him, why is it that when you focus more on compassion, love, and compassion, it's so much easier to realize emptiness? And he said, well, you realize the chair's empty. So the chair has always been empty. You've never really been sitting there. You thought you were sitting there and just looking after yourself, but there was really no one ever sitting. And then if your focus is on others, you realize there was never anyone in the chair in the first place. And I thought that was a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, I've always remembered him saying it that way. Matu Rinpoche, his name is Matu Rinpoche. Anyway, yeah, he said that. So therefore, if you start to focus more on others, it's really like what you're trying to achieve is pretty much the same, happiness, but not for yourself only. In fact, you focus so much on others and their happiness that as a side effect, you're much happier than you've ever been. Isn't that interesting? So you don't really have to look after your happiness. You're doing it in the most effective way if you look after the happiness of others. But here the mind can be very tricky. Self-centeredness can sneak in and can make you feel as if being altruistic makes you miserable. Well, because your altruism is not unconditional. It's conditional. You want gratitude. You want appreciation. You feel like you're making all that sacrifice. Well, people didn't even thank you. That's when it becomes really difficult. People don't even know I'm doing it. It's really funny. I have different neighbors. And these neighbors are, they're different. I mean, some are more self-centered than others. We all know the difference. The ones, when they sweep the corridor, are very quiet. They're usually the ones who don't need to be appreciated for what they do. But there's some that bang the doors when they do the cleaning. And it's like sooner or later you open the door and you thank them for cleaning the hallway. Because they want, you see, so there's a difference, you can tell. Are they doing it really just because it's the right thing to do? And I'm not talking about mistakenly bang against your door. But if every door is being banged in a certain rhythm, you go, oh, okay. And we have enough people on the floor, so I'm not giving anything away. But I know the ones who need the attention, and everyone else does as well. And then there are the ones very quietly, you don't know. You just walk outside and you go, wow, it looks so clean. I wonder who did that. But they don't need to hear, wow, amazing. They keep it secret, yes?
I think like a similar example that just popped in mind is like when you're at a counter, right? Oh, yeah, you can't hear me.
Thank you. I think it's for the recording.
Yeah, sorry.
It's for the recording.
This other example just popped into mind, and I'm definitely guilty of it, is like you're at a counter for some kind of, maybe getting coffee, and there's a tipping area. And sometimes unconsciously I'm just like, oh, I want them to realize that I am tipping. The service is great here. You kind of make eye contact as you do it. And there's a famous Seinfeld episode, right? Where he puts the dollar in and then the person doesn't see, so he grabs it out again, and everyone accuses him of stealing the money. And he's like, no, I was just trying to show. And that's like the whole episode of Seinfeld is centered around that.
Okay.
But yeah, I caught myself even the other day doing it. And, I was like, oh, I'm going to wait for them to kind of like turn around and give like a little, thank you gesture for all your kindness. And
right.
it's the self-centered mind.
It's the self-centered mind. And I think that's like the least situation we need to worry about, I guess, you know. I mean, in a way, I think sometimes it could also be you want them to see that you appreciate. So it's not just about getting the thank you, but I was thinking as you were telling the story, I thought, well, in that moment, you want them to know, I appreciate your kindness, I appreciate your service. So you put it in there that they know and they feel appreciated. So sometimes it can be that, but it's oftentimes mixed.
It's mixed.
There could also be that moment when you still crave the kind of, you know, if they just kind of look at it and look away and I go, kind of that moment of disappointment, you know, when previously you're used to them saying thank you, you go,
It always goes back to your motivation. And that's
Yeah,
what I've been
yeah,
thinking so
exactly.
much about. It's like, what's your motivation
Yeah,
of doing this? And then,
absolutely.
are you lying to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Is the self-centered mind kind of
Yep.
creeping in and destroying your motivation? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a very good example, I think. It's kind of really funny in Germany. In Germany, when driving a car, and I think it's true everywhere, but I only ever drive in Germany, so I'm only familiar with that. So sometimes you stop if someone is waiting and you let them in, and you know, and then they thank you, right? They always thank you to say like this, or they show it some, but not everyone does. Some people don't. So I remember in the beginning, and it also bothers me. I'm so used to because it's done, and then I decided, because it was like my self-centered mind, of course, it was not unconditional. I'm not doing it for them to thank me. I decided I'm not doing it for me to thank them. So I decided I'll do it because it's the right thing to do, whether they thank me or not. And then I don't even pay attention, do they thank me or not? It's not important. So in that little situation, I could train myself. But the funny thing is also when I drive with my nieces and nephews, who are so used to it from our parents. My mom, if she drives with me, usually she lets me drive so I don't lose my ability. I mean, I'll get some training. So she drives next to me and she says, "You didn't even say thank you," or she didn't even say thank you. And because I try to train myself in that situation, I keep telling her, but I didn't do it for him to thank me. And she's like, but still I should do that. But anyway, my nieces and nephews, it's easier to influence them. So they're also like, they're doing the same as my parents, their grandmother, you know, I drive with them and they're like, he didn't even say thank you. And I said, but I didn't do it for them to thank me. I only did it to help them, and that's what I did. And now they keep quiet. It's kind of cute. I can't influence them, and I shouldn't be like, I'm still thinking, but that's the one that I can actually train myself a little bit in. And then when it's bigger things, when you do something for someone, don't expect thank you. It's best to already prepare your mind that when you're doing it, I'm doing this. So while you're doing it, prepare your mind thinking, I'm doing this to help them. And whether they appreciate it or not, who cares? And in India, drivers don't do it. They don't do that. It's nice. So you don't expect it back. I like that. No, I watch them, you know. Another driver lets them go past. Sometimes they shout something out of the window because they know each other and they say a few words, right, like friendly, but probably more because they know each other, not because the other person. So they don't thank each other. I like that. Or the beggars, you know, the beggars are like, please, please, please. And you give them 5 rupees, whatever, 50, whatever rupees. I love it. So my teachers, they would always say, when you give with respect. Because I never did that. I wanted them to I was like, they didn't even say thank you. It really bothered me every time. And then the second thing is I didn't give with respect. I didn't give with respect. They'd be like hassling me or something. My favorite is this beggar. I haven't seen her for a while. She'd be like walking and she sees me and suddenly she has a strong limp. She's like shaking. Saw her. She's just walking like this. She sees me and she goes. I mean, I didn't know that first that she was faking it, but one time she didn't see me coming. And it was like, what? She saw me and right away, right? And you know, and it used to bother me. She'd be like running after me and I'm like, oh, you just like be quiet, you know, like here's the money. That's not generosity. And my teacher, one of my teachers, Geshema Kelsang, he used to say, giving without respect is not giving. They give you the opportunity to practice generosity. You have to thank them. That was really taking it. Whoa, I have to think, whoa. I shouldn't expect, they give me the opportunity to practice generosity. I need to thank them. Wow, right? So at least look them in the eyes. Don't look down on them, because usually they do sit down. That is so beautiful, that respect thing. And it takes a while, or took a while for me to kind of change it, and I'm not attentive enough that I always remember. But when I do, and I'm in a good mood and all that, right, to think, it doesn't matter. As I walk through, I mean, you have some time in between, it doesn't matter whether they thank you or not, they look grumpy or not, you do it because it's the right thing and they give you the opportunity. So you have these few moments to change, and then it becomes much easier. Then whatever happens, wow, I've been so lucky to have that opportunity. Yeah, this is what I learned from my teachers, through their examples and through their words. And then, of course, if it's big things, you're in some situation, you're working, you're, what's the word? Back off, is that what you say? You're working ahead off, you know, doing this, that. But you're doing it for others. That's such an incredible opportunity. You get so much merit. Thank you from others is actually totally minor in comparison. And then it's different. Then it's different. You appreciate it or not, it's different. Yeah, so then it becomes joyful. If you don't expect anything in return, you're doing it because it's the right thing, it becomes different. And even if people criticize you, it's fine. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You did the right thing, and especially when it's in the context of the Dharma, you've provided the Dharma. Nothing else matters. Yeah. And then it becomes joyful, and there's no pressure. There's no pressure. You don't expect anything back. So that is, I think, really, that's the true deal. Hard, incredibly hard. But, and you know, when I think of some of the greatest lamas that I had the fortune just to spend a little time with, like never, don't hang out because they're all male, so I don't hang out with lamas. Anyway, I wouldn't want to. It's like, you know, what are we going to do? What are you going to talk about? I mean, hanging out, if it's to do with the Dharma, it's great. But I've had the opportunity, for instance, Yangden Rinpoche, who was always with His Holiness, this youngish monk. Well, not so young anymore, but anyway, still relatively young. And incredible understanding of the Dharma. And I don't get a sense of an ego when I'm around him. He's not the only person, but he comes to mind right now, because I translated for Rinpoche when he was in London, not last winter, but the winter before. I spent some time in London at the center there, and Rinpoche gave some teachings, and you know, just walking to the teachings, walking back, talking about the schedule, that's all it needed. Or sometimes we were all invited to have dinner in Rinpoche's house. He had, like, they rented him a house for his brother and him. Anyway, so there was no sense of an ego. Really, you feel it. There's no sense, I need this. It's always like, it's very level-headed. Just do what needs to be done. Very kind, very compassionate. So it's possible. There are people like that. Another person I didn't get a sense of an ego was Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche. Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche? Yeah, I know he's really popular when it comes to teaching. That's also very important that he's such an amazing teacher in his understanding of the Dharma. But what impressed me the most was when I once had an audience with him. It was actually the Emory students. Part of their program was to travel to Bir, and I took that day trip together with them. And one of them arranged a meeting with Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche. And it's really funny. Something really funny happened. Not that funny, but kind of funny now. I thought, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, the movie Lama, degenerate Lama, my arrogance, you know, was through the roof. Just thinking, because I only knew him because he made this movie, The Cup, right? This football movie about monks being movie crazy. It's a really funny movie if you like football. It's really funny. It's called The Cup. They were playing for some cup, right? It's all about football. Really funny. The monks kind of wanting to listen to the World Cup, I guess. and like taking out from the disciplinarian, not allowing them, and they're doing all these cheeky things. And anyway, it's a really funny movie. And he made it. And I was like, movie Lama, total degenerate, because he was so arrogant. My mind, I was totally arrogant. I walked in there and I was like, whatever. And then the first thing he said was, the Buddha diluted the truth. I was like, the movie Lama, the degenerate. And then he said the most profound things, and it changed in 1 second. He said, the Buddha diluted the teachings. The teachings are like a laser beam. They're beyond word. You can't see them, you can't touch them. But he spray painted. You know when you spray paint a laser beam, only then you can see it? I don't know, I've never tried that. But apparently you can spray paint a laser beam and then you can see it. Otherwise you can't see it. He said, the Dharma, the truth, so emptiness and everything it refers to is beyond words, right? It's beyond words. I mean, the actual experience that you have when you understand these ideas, they're beyond words. But the Buddha couldn't implant his understanding onto others or into other people's minds. Couldn't do that. So all he could use was the closest to these truths, which are words. So he used words, but that's why the words of the Buddha are not enough. The words of the teachings are not enough. We need to understand them. We need to understand their meaning and internalize them, and only then can we have a true realization, a true experience of whatever it is, right? And so the Buddha diluted the teachings or diluted the Dharma, the truth, by spraying. But that was the incredible skill of the Buddha. And we still have to do all the work, unfortunately. You cannot implant anything into our mind. So when he said that, I was like, wow. Oh my God, who is this man? And again, I didn't have a sense of an ego. I remember thinking, I don't get a sense of any kind of, he could have very subtle, I don't know, I can't say. I really don't know. But like an ordinary person, you can oftentimes tell they want to be appreciated, they want, not in a really coarse way, but especially, I don't know how to put it. And I definitely feel sometimes it's less or more, or, and sometimes I'm just totally off the chart and I have no idea. But I remember these two lamas, I thought it was really pronounced. But this holiness, I already thought it in the beginning, so I don't know whether it's, whatever. I didn't expect anything other. But here with Rinpoche, both Rinpoches who don't have that same status, it was nice to hear, nice to get that sense, no ego involved in any way. Isn't that beautiful? Right? And it's possible. It shows us it's absolutely possible. And I've never seen him depressed or anything. Never. I don't think there is any depression. He's very level-headed, always the same, always this calm, kind. Wouldn't that be nice? And you know what? Jitsuma Denzin Pamo, she once said something, and I've researched it afterwards, and I found it first, and now I can no longer find it. But she told, again, this was in the context of the Emory students going to see her, and I remember her talking about Swedish scientists, I guess psychologists, that are nowadays also called scientists. They have found that people who meditate and do these kind of, engage in these kind of transformational practices, like working with the mind. I don't know whether they specifically talked about Buddhism, but of course it's not unique to Buddhism. You have it in the Hindu tradition and other traditions as well. Working with the mind, mindfulness and so forth, doing these practices. They found that there is, and I don't know the vocabulary, I don't know the terminology here, but the way they put it, if you think of a person's well-being, a general kind of well-being, it's kind of like a line. You could see it as a line, ordinarily, like a certain mood we're in, a state of happiness that we usually are in, right? Without anything terrible or something wonderful happening, the usual kind of mood. When you do these practices, it is enhanced. It's enhanced. You're generally happier, generally more satisfied. Your general well-being. Like some people are like, so how are you? Okay. kind of like okay. It's just always okay, right? But they found with these practices, there's the level of general well-being is enhanced or is raised. And then when something terrible happens and something positive, it spikes, of course, right? Suddenly you feel like, whoa, or whoa. These spikes are much shorter. So, okay, great, yes, but you come down again. It's not like you get so excited and overexcited, but also in the negative. You know, something happens, oh, bummer. But you're much more resilient, so you pop up again quicker. So it's a bit like your general well-being is like a line. She explained it like a line that is raised the more you do these practices, just a greater well-being, satisfaction, you're just more satisfied and happy, more inner peace. But then when these spikes, when life throws the good and the bad at you, you're more level-headed. Yes, there's a short moment of excitement, but okay, you come down again. So excitement can be very disruptive and it leads to strong attachment. So you don't want to be overexcited. And then of course on the lower level, yes, there's also a level. And I know that for myself, I know that to be true. I really know that to be true. I mean, looking back, when I first came into the Dharma and now, there is a difference. My mom even thinks I'm nicer. My mom thinks I'm a nicer person. Oh, I was a difficult teenager. She knows what she's talking about. So, but the thing is, therefore, there's another reason to do this, right? Isn't that beautiful? That kind of level of well-being. And that is all to do with working with the self-centered mind. Any practice, any Buddhist practice is directly or indirectly geared towards lessening or weakening, I should say, weakening the self-centered mind. Any practice. Can you think of any practice that doesn't do that? Right? I mean, even when you reduce anger, you reduce the self-centered mind. Any practice you do. And as a result of that, mindfulness, what are you mindful of? Oh, self-centered mind is running wild. I'll better put a stop to it. Yeah? So introspection, etc., it's really all about looking at your own mind. What is it doing? Am I harming myself by just having these crazy thoughts? Yeah, so that's therefore reducing the self-centered attitude and now replacing it with cherishing others. Going one step further, cherishing others. Yes, focusing on others, and now, in the same way as we think, oh, may I be happy, may I find happiness, may I be taken care of, now those thoughts are directed at others. And the thing is, you don't no longer need to think, may others like me, because if you become centered on others, they will like you. You don't even have to work for it. May I have enough financial means? Well, if you're centered on others, you give to others and it will come back. In fact, I have some classmate. He's the most generous person I've ever met. He had very little money when he was first a monk, but when he had 10 rupees, he gave 5 or 4, right? He always gave whatever he could. And now he's back in Tibet. He's from Tibet. He went back to Tibet in his monastery to there teach and help out and be there, for Tibetans in Tibet. And he has a lot of Chinese students. He knows Chinese. And they give him so much money. So much crazy. He has these crazy rich Chinese students. But he never keeps it. He always gives it to the monastery or people who need it. He arranged these trucks with clothing from China because a lot of people were so poor they didn't have enough clothing. So they distributed it there. Yeah, he's money's just thrown at him. Well, no surprise. He's always been so generous. Yeah. And another person that I can think of, there's one German nun. She's so generous. And so generous. And somehow money always comes to her. I don't want to say who it is, but never mind. You know her. We both know her. She's so generous. But she, and I'm always worried she runs out of money. But no, somehow it always comes. It's funny. Those people who are very generous, you can tell there's always money coming. So they don't need to worry about money. And I know another nun who doesn't have that much, but she's so stingy, right? We all go out and have some tea a foreign nun, we have some tea, and I always have to pay. It's like she needs to go to the bathroom, or someone else has. So when it comes to paying, because she feels like she doesn't have enough, and it may be tight, but I can't even tell her, don't do that. It's going to get worse. You have to practice generosity, if just a little bit. She has become better over the years. But there were a few times we were like all looking at each other, like a group of us, and like, whoa, I have to go to the bathroom again. Don't do that. You want to get money? Give it. You want to have money? Give it. Don't give too much. Don't give away everything. That's not wise generosity. But every opportunity you have, it's not about the amount, it's about the giving itself. Right? That willingness to give, the willingness to share. And it'll come. You don't need to look after yourself. If you cherish others, then whatever you do to the other person, it will come to you. We should do the experiment. We should do like an experiment, like a controlled experience. You go away, next year we'll meet again and see how, no, a year's maybe too short. But the thing is, it works. There's so many examples of people, like I said, those generous ones, they never run out of money. Those stingy ones do. Whether it's that they feel they're poor or they actually have a money problem. That's also, of course, the problem of those who are have a problem with miserliness. They always feel they don't have enough. So whether they do or not, they never feel like they have enough. Yeah. Who's the poorest person? The one who's most dissatisfied. So even the king could would feel like the poorest person because they never feel they have enough. The rich king, for instance. Yeah, so that's the secret. And what do? We do the opposite. We think by not giving money, we'll be able to save money. We'll be able to get more. And if then that happens, we do get more, that's only because we were generous in the past. Believing that robbing a bank, it makes you rich. It can only do that if you accumulated the karma to be rich. That's why not every bank robber gets very rich. I mean, some of them, in fact, they get all this money, they're never caught, and after a few years, somehow they manage to lose everything. Right? It just wasn't enough. It didn't accumulate the causes. Yes, please. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to share quickly
Please.
About the school that my kids go to.
It's only for the recording, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so my kids go to the school where each parent pays only as much as they can.
Okay.
And it's unconditional, what's it called? Subsidy.
Yes. Okay.
Without any reason. Even at the beginning of the year, if you say, yes, we can pay, but in the middle, you can't.
Okay.
You can say, sorry.
Not possible. Okay. Oh, that's a
So
nice school.
everyone wonders how this school manages, and still they do. There's still enough money.
Great example. That's a good example. You know what? That reminds me of a very beautiful organization, a Dharma. Yeah, go ahead.
It also means that there's all kinds of people in the school. There are people who really can't afford, conventionally private education.
Of course.
And there are people who offer more than what it takes to educate just their child. But somehow as a system...
Really works. That's beautiful. That's a great example. It reminds me of this really beautiful organization. It's called Dharma Friends of Israel. That's usually the group that I go to. And they have decided at some point, we don't take money. Now this is very, very difficult. We don't take money means we do take money, but only offerings, dana. Now this is really, really difficult. And I would be really concerned to run a center and just hope that people give enough, because wow, but they started that way. They had the support of their Lama, Jadu Rinpoche, and actually it works. They say now, it works. It took some time, it took some worry, but people understood the idea, and those who could give more, they understood it was helpful, and they're still there. There were times when they thought they had to close it down, And then I went to see like a lama about it, and they just made it, and then things, you see, it really works. But it takes some courage. Yeah, incredible. Yeah, these are some great examples. And I'm not saying it always does. If the merit is lacking, the people doing it lack the merit, then it may be better to take a fee. I'm not saying don't do that at all. But there are some beautiful examples when it does work. And it shows in terms of, generosity is very important. So for us, it's not about the amount. It's not about the amount. It's about how you give. If your mental state is such, okay, I can't give that much, but I give it my wholeheartedly, it may be of benefit, and have the positive motivation, as was mentioned before, the motivation. If it's given unconditionally, then you're safe when it comes to financial. So always give 5 rupees. That's it. Doesn't have to be, like when you see a beggar, for instance. Why not? Right? Just to be too lazy to take your purse out and stop and stuff. But it's really worth it. Yeah. And with respect, of course. Yeah. Anyway, has the bell rang?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Huh. What should we do? No, I'm kidding.
Another example to this, there's the world's biggest free kitchen.
Sorry.
The world's biggest free kitchen are the Sikh Gurudwaras, and they only run on donation, and have always run on donation.
What is that again? Say again.
The Langar, the Sikh Gurudwaras, the world's biggest kitchen, they've always run on donation, and
oh, that's so inspiring.
Since like 500-600 years, and never
Where they do
taken
this,
any
like
payment.
people sit in lines and then put that's just incredible. This is so beautiful. Wow. They're in the Sikh communities, they have these beautiful like hospitals where that's for free. It's incredible. Yeah, I'm very inspired by some of these. There's like one Sikh Lama I've heard who gives teachings to these thousands of people every day, and also like handing out food, and there's hospitals. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And they're very successful. It's the motivation. And again, people's generosity, it's beautiful. Can you tell us the name again?
The practice is called Langar.
Langar, okay.
And it's the Golden Temple is the biggest, in Amritsar, is the biggest free kitchen in the world.
Oh yeah, that's the Golden Temple, but aren't there also other temples like that?
All the Sikh Gurudwaras, mostly the bigger ones, they always have this practice going on.
It's beautiful. I think it's so beautiful. Yeah, I saw a documentary about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, all these people working for free and working so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true Dharma.
Where is it?
In Amritsar, in Punjab.
The Golden Temple in Amritsar. But I was thinking probably about another temple, because you see, I've heard from many of the nuns that there's this one guru, this one Lama, Sikh Lama, when he gives teachings like every day, hundreds go there. I mean, people are busy, but still they all go there because his teachings are so pure. Plus, I'm not sure it's the same person, but maybe it's another Lama who founded this incredible hospital. And the Tibetans are connected to this hospital and send patients there. You can only go there, the Tibetans can only go there if they were sent by another hospital. But you go there, it's for free, and it's super clean. The nurses, the doctors are super nice, and they don't even get paid. Or they get dana.
They work on donations, they
donations.
get all, it's all seva or service, everything comes from donation. Yeah.
This is so inspirational. That's the way it should be. That's beautiful, right?
Yeah, and I recently read about people who are also now giving up the concept of money altogether, like living without money. People now are practicing to live without money.
Yeah.
And they figure out they get more bounty of things, when they just give up money, and they're worried about things like, okay, now I have $100, how will I survive? They just give that up as well. And they get back so much.
So much.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of this dear friend, this nun from the Theravada tradition, the Indian nun. Right. She's also not handling money, and she can travel, and she's sent to these hospitals, the best hospitals, and she doesn't have any money. And I once also met a monk from the Theravada tradition. I think he was from Germany. He arrived in Tushita one day and he had no money. He traveled without money through India, and that was before Google Pay and stuff. So it's like, everyone was like, I want to help him. Don't walk, I'll give you a taxi. It was incredible. And he got everywhere because people were like so inspired by, and he had no money at all. And he traveled everywhere as a Buddhist monk. And he said he was British. He was not German. Right away I thought he was German. No, he's British. And I remember he said, even in England, he stands outside a supermarket and he always gets something. In England, in London. Because people either know or they ask, and he says, I don't handle money, and so I beg for my food. Some, he said, go back in to do shopping for him and come out with food for him to put in his bowl. Wow, that's the blessing of, that's just the power of living in that way. I mean, it's the opposite of greed, and it all comes. Such a good example. You know, when there's no greed, when you either give or even whatever you take is according to people's needs, it'll come. See, it really works. Yeah. Anyway, let's have lunch. All right.